Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, who is here at Citizen Street Chamber and who is online. I'm Alessandra. I'm the Managing Director of CISB. It's a pleasure to have all of you here. For opening remarks, I would like to ask to Magnus Alston, representing the Chairman of CISB, for some words. Okay, please, Magnus.
First of all, a warm welcome to everybody, all members of Swedish-Brazilian and CISB, and all friends of Swedish-Brazilian and CISB to come here and also be part of this virtually. I'm Magnus Alström. I'm together with Alessandra. We started CISB basically 10 years ago. And I'm the head of global innovation, working with this kind of setups in different countries. Digital transformation is making a huge change to all of us and all in the industrial companies. Now we have the vortex that say now we need to start to react more and more and transform our industries, both business models and ways of doing business and technology and so on. And all our solutions should be in one way or another influenced by this. And AI and autonomy is one of these major technology areas that will bring this change happen. And today we have a great chance to listen into great speakers and get nice challenges and obviously some solutions as well. And hopefully during the breaks, the coffee break and the cocktail, we can find some partnership and solutions to try to solve things together and find ways of reasoning also to work together for the future. And we're especially happy to have Fredrik Heinz, distinguished professor from Swedish University, on board to be like a professor chair in Brazil, like an ambassador of Sweden on AI, to promote the collaboration between the countries, starting with this event today. And I hope you all, intelligent people here around, will try to join in and form a Brazilian-Swedish community to develop artificial intelligence for the future together. Warm welcome, everybody.
Thank you very much, Magnus. I will be the first one to make a presentation. Okay. Is okay?
That's okay.
Hello, Pedro.
Yes. Just a minute.
Okay. I will say some words about our AI and autonomy initiative. Okay.
Okay.
First words about CISB. Okay. The initiative, the challenge that we got last year, the first steps, results, and new opportunities to all of you. About CISB, we are a non-profit association, okay, focused on implement research, technology, innovation partnership. Okay. Founded in May 2011, 11 years, no more than. Okay, we are located here in São Paulo. We are simple, agile, and lean organization structure, okay, based on triple X concept. Okay. As association, we have members from Sweden, from Brazil, a lot of English. It's a pleasure to have today here some members. Edison is here, Sabine, Chopin, what else? And other ones, okay? And possible a lot of members online, but also a lot of partners in Sweden and Brazil that make all of our initiatives possible. So what do we do? Okay, we create an environment that stimulates collaboration. Okay, we connect people and actors from Sweden and Brazil through events and meetings. Our workshop today is one of the examples. We attract project ideas, mainly ideas of projects of interest of our members. We also find funding opportunities mainly in Brazil for these projects. We facilitate corporate venture matchmaking between corporation and startups. Today we will see a speech of one startup that went with us to Sweden for matchmaking with several Swedish companies. And of course, we promote missions to Sweden, several missions so far, okay, and we disseminate opportunities. So, about our initiative. Last year, 2021, we got a challenge, okay, to create a bilateral community in AI and autonomy, okay, in order to create conditions of new projects, new bilateral projects between Sweden and Brazil on AI and applied AI, based on our experience in aeronautics. The cooperation in aeronautics was very well established in 2014 after the Gripen deal. And nowadays there is a project portfolio, a very strong community, several projects, and we want to grow this bilateral relation, okay? And AI and autonomy is one of the new areas of this. What we did, okay? First we did a mapping, okay? A scouting of researchers in Brazil and startups. Where is Claudio? Claudio just arrived, our consultant that helped us a lot into this scouting. Thank you, Claudio. Okay. And we invited several research startups and mainly small and medium companies to a workshop series last year. Professor Anna participated and others that are here today participating. Was the first connections to understand the capabilities of Sweden, some challenges and what they are looking for. Okay. And also we offered some opportunities last year about mobility, travel grants and scholarships. And this year we have two missions, one with researchers and another with startups. Okay. And of course in Sweden a lot of matchmaking, and now we are doing follow-up meeting, and finally a face-to-face workshop here today. And of course we wanna, with all of these activities, to create conditions of more projects. Okay. About our scholarship program, okay? It's a program in partnership with CNPq, CISB and SAB, okay? Last year we launched the last call, 7 call, with 10 scholarships, okay? We had a market campaign mainly online, okay? Scholarship, that means post-graduation, 1 year in Sweden, okay, for postdoc or sandwich, okay? Has to be hosted in a university in Sweden in collaboration with SAB. And we had 7 pre-applications, and 10 researchers were granted, 8 decided to go to Sweden, and 2 of them will perform projects on AI in automation, and Professor Fred Heinz will be the host. Okay, so we are offering something in AI. Okay, we already started. About the mission. Okay, first the mission in May. Okay, was a mission dedicated only to AI researchers. We granted 8, but at the end we will have 18 people in the delegation. A lot of new guests from different areas, and also from the government, and also from the new AI Applied Center in Brazil, Yara Center and CIA in health, okay? Also Maria Valéria from Ericsson joined the mission, okay? We had a very tight agenda. This agenda was connected to the Brazil-Sweden Innovation Week, led by our embassy in Stockholm, okay? First day, we had meetings with SAB in the morning, and after we go to the opening of the 3rd Brazil-Sweden Innovation Week. Osa, who is here, coordinated a panel, AI panel. On Tuesday, several lectures from Vinova, Chalmers, AI Sweden, Coterro, and also we had a meeting with our ambassador there, and we went to visit Ericsson. On Wednesday, Professor Fred was our host at Linköping University. We had a chance to know about several AI programs in Sweden, WASP, ELITE, and others, okay, and create possibilities of connections and discussions. On Thursday was a full day at SAB, Comitec, and also presentation about what it is, and also sustainable underground mine. And in the last day was dedicated for side meetings. We organized side meetings between the researchers and different actors in Sweden, not only in Linköping, but in different cities, okay? In total, 28 side meetings. The second mission was in September, with 60 startups. We have 3 startups here today with us. 4 days, almost a crazy week in Sweden, a lot of travels, okay? And now I have a lot of friends who stay together many times in the train, okay? We start on Tuesday in shopping in Sabi in the morning, in shopping science park in the afternoon. On Wednesday, we have more meetings in Sabi in Stockholm, okay? Emerging technologies and others. And also 2 startups went to visit ABB Synerlip, Investors. On Thursday, we were together in Gothenburg, X, and also in Volvo Cars. And back to Stockholm on Friday, meetings with Ignite Sweden, that is a platform making the connection between corporation and startups, was our partner in the mission. Also, we had a meeting with our ambassador there. And 3 startups went to Scania, and another 3 went to visit Coterra Innovation. Very tight agendas, several meetings, and I think they are very happy, and also Sabi, okay? And Ericsson and other ones. And about the results, okay? As I said in the beginning, my challenge was to create a condition of bilateral community. I can see a lot of logos now, and also nice photos of the missions. People are connected, and also the institutions, and some examples of the cooperation under discussion nowadays between people and organizations. André Bolso de Leon is discussing something with Rossa. Rossa is going to São Carlos tomorrow to visit Professor André. Professor Felipe Verri from ITA is discussing another collaboration with Sabi in shopping. What else? Rogério de Carvalho from Instituto Federal Fluminense is discussing projects with Comtech and shopping. He had a chance to go back to Sweden in September for the event What a Peace. So very motivated and look forward to create projects. Gustavo Pessin from Vale Institute Technology will say some words about the collaboration under construction, because we'll have Gustavo as a speaker. And also Sabi discussing collaboration with all of the 6 startups. Okay? And new opportunities. We will launch this month the new joint call in partnership with CNPq and Saab. Once again, 10 scholarships, post-graduation, postdoctoral sandwich, 1 year in Sweden. Priority areas, not only aeronautics, but also AI, data fusion, and automation. It's important, okay? And we're closing end of February. That means probably the guest researchers will start in Sweden in September next year. Also, we will offer, once again, travel grants, funding 1 week of researchers to go to Sweden with us in another mission in October next year. And also, we will have some funding for startups, but more connected projects, minimum 15 days in Sweden, from 50 days, 1 month. We still don't know, but we will discuss with the applicants, okay? So it's important to support the cooperation with this kind of tool. And also, we have our new professor chair here, Professor Freddy, okay? Last Monday, he got a certificate about new professor chair on AI, okay? It was a gift to Brazil, I can say. He will be with us next 3 years, 2 4 weeks per year, 2 times, more or less. And one of the challenges is exactly to develop the cooperation, this network, and to increase the projects between Sweden and Brazil. And conclusions, okay? What I can say, AI and autonomy collaboration is under the framework of aeronautics and has been developed from several activities in 2021 and 22. And also we wanted to expand this cooperation to another segment, mainly in smart cities and in life science, okay? And for this, we have another initiative called Sweden-Brazil Innovation Initiative that CISB is one of the partners. In this initiative, we are creating more events. Tomorrow we have matchmaking, okay? That's it. And we are here because we are in our annual meeting. Today is the 2nd day. It's part of the Innovation Week organized by the Swedish Embassy in Brazil. Several events that started yesterday. And from this side, we will finish only November 25. It will be almost 3 weeks of events. Today is our workshop, and next week we have a specific webinar to say about the trends to promote to release this in our community in Brazil. And in November 24, we will have a webinar in partnership with CNPq to promote the scholarships, okay? Hope to see all of you, okay? Thank you very much. Any question? So, let's go. Now I'd like to ask Professor Fred Heinz, okay, to make a presentation. Research trends and challenges in AI and autonomy. Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction, and of course, thank you for this opportunity to be this professor chair of Sweden and Brazil when it comes to AI and automation. So I'm very happy and excited to start doing this work. And what I want today was try to give a little bit of kind of some of the challenges that I see, and actually some of the trends, maybe I should say more, and also try to connect it a little bit to the work that I have already been doing, so that we can see what are the kind of possibilities for future collaborations. And so actually, I think, I mean, one general thing which I do think is very interesting is this road mapping and trying to understand what are the strategic research questions. So actually, I am leading a lot of the work in Europe when it comes to develop the strategic research agendas when it comes to AI. So I lead one of four networks of research excellence called Taylor, where we're developing the scientific foundations for trustworthy AI. And together with these other networks of excellence, we are going to develop a joint strategic research agenda for AI for Europe, and I'm leading that work. So I think that would also be interesting to kind of get input and to discuss that with the Brazilian side. Will I get some slides, or should I just keep on talking? Maybe. We'll see. Thank you. Yes. So as usual, I just have way too much material. So we'll see how far I will get, and then we will ask about the rest afterwards. So actually, the first trend. Anyway, never mind. So the first trend I think is this on trustworthy AI. So of course, I mean, this has been a trend in Europe for a long time, but actually, as I said, we just come from Salvador, where we had a workshop for a few days, and actually several companies and organizations are bringing this up also here in Brazil. So I think this seems to be not only a European phenomenon, but actually more a global phenomenon. And I have been part of this European high-level expert group where I've developed these guidelines for trustworthy AI. And of course, now the big challenge is, of course, that how do we actually operationalize this? So there's a lot of research and challenges related to how do we actually go from this nice principles that everyone can agree upon, that yes, we do want fairness, we do want kind of explainability and complementing people and augmenting people and so on, but how do we actually do it in practice? So here I think there's a huge number of research challenges related to that. And also in connection to that, we see that there's another major trend is this integration of reasoning and learning. And often it's placed in the framework of this, this system 1 and system 2 thinking that, for example, Donny Kahneman has been writing about in this book, Thinking Fast and Slow, where this system 2, in some sense, is the prototypical analytical thinking, where we have explicit, deliberate reasoning based on facts and goals and so on, and then we come up with a solution. So in some sense, the daily work that we do every day is very much around this. And here we see the kind of traditional machine reasoning type of techniques have been very successful. And I mean, the whole goal has been to mechanize and understand how this kind of formal reasoning is being done. But on the other hand, we have this other system 1, which is the more, implicit, automatic, and opaque part, where intuition is probably the kind of prototypical example, where if we are given a task to solve or a problem to address, we intuitively feel, oh, this is probably the right answer, and in many cases it is the right answer, but usually we cannot explain or tell how did we come to that conclusion. So that is this other type of making decisions. And actually, this corresponds very well to this more data-driven machine learning type of techniques, which again, very often works very well, but it's kind of difficult for us to understand exactly how they reach these conclusions. And actually, I would say another example of this kind of thinking is perception, where we are extremely good at recognizing objects and so on. And we were very bad at explaining how did we recognize this particular object or this person. So of course, one major challenge is how do we integrate this? And so this is my my second trend is hybrid AI, where we are integrating these different approaches, both from reasoning and learning, but also integrating many different types of approaches, not only the kind of more logical based, but also more probabilistic. So the combination between probabilistic and logic is usually statistical relational learning, as one example. And what we see today, there's a lot of interest in this neurosymbolic approaches, where we try to combine the more symbolic logic-based approaches with the neural networks-based approaches in different ways. So here we have another trend, which again, I would say is a global trend, but where we do a lot of work as well. So actually, the name of my research group in Linköping is called the Reasoning and Learning Group. So our goal is really this: how can we solve or develop methods basing them on both this machine reasoning and machine learning, and connecting them so that we can solve more challenging problems that either technique can do by themselves. So originally we come more from the knowledge representation, so more the traditional AI side, but over the last years, we have moved both towards machine learning, but also towards multi-agent systems. And we very much interested in these intersections between these different areas. That's mainly where we try to work. As one concrete example of work that we have been doing is probabilistic signal temporal logic. So actually, one of the things we've been doing quite a lot is called runtime verification, where, I mean, traditionally, if you have say a car or a train or something, or a network communication protocol, you do verification, that you verify that no matter what happens, the protocol or the vehicle will always do what it's supposed to do. So it's violating any safety constraints and so on. But the challenge is that when you have this more autonomous and more complex system, it's very difficult to model the system sufficiently detailed to actually verify that their execution behavior is always correct. So what we have been doing is runtime verification, where we use the same kind of logics that you normally do in verification, but instead of verifying a model of the system, we're verifying execution, the particular execution of the system. And then we can detect if something is going wrong, and then address that if need be. But of course, there's been some challenge. I mean, traditionally, these logics are Boolean, so it's either true or false. But of course, when you're working with sensor data, it's not that crisp, but rather it's much. We usually use probabilistic models. So therefore, we have extended this to a stochastic temporal logic, so that we can talk about the probability of events. So instead of having our variables being true or false, it's actually probability distributions. And the second thing is, again, if you want to work with runtime verification, it's of course very important that you can detect that something went wrong, but it's even better if you can detect it before it actually happened, so that you can deal with it before it, so you can act to avoid the unintended outcome to happen. So therefore, we have also extended it to reason over predictions. So actually, we can use a machine learning model to learn the local behavior in the current situation, and then we can use that to project the likely short-term future. And then we can monitor both the observed past and the likely short-term future, and make sure that this always satisfies these desirable properties. So this is then actually a combination of both this probabilistic logic and the predictive models, which can be anything from a Kalman filter or a GAN or whatever you want to use there. So that's one example. I think a third trend, which actually I would say it seems to be still mostly talking about. Of course, there is some work, especially in the US, I would say, about this, but I think this will really be the really major kind of next step. And that is today, most, especially machine learning models, are correlation based. So they see that there is these two variables are correlated, but they don't take the direction of this dependency into account. And I really think we need to go from this correlation-based approaches towards causality-based approaches that allows us both to do diagnosis, but also to allow us to explain why a certain thing happens. So this image or picture I've been using for a while to kind of show the kind of general trend. So we have the trend that we both want to combine this more data-driven and knowledge-based approaches, but that we also want to go from correlation-based models to causality-based models, and then use them to explain what has happened in the past, and to use it to predict what is likely to happen in the future. So that's another trend. A fourth trend, where to point this anywhere? No, is synthetic data. So we are all aware that many of these machine learning based approaches, they require a lot of data. And in many situations, there's a lot of data that contains valuable information, but due to privacy and other considerations, might not be allowed to use it, or we don't want to use it for other reasons. And then the question becomes, how can we actually take advantage of this data? And working with synthetic data is one such example. And just to show an example what synthetic data can be like, these are then pictures that look like faces of people just like us. But the interesting thing is that these people do not exist, but rather we have trained, we haven't done it, someone else, have trained a model based on real pictures of real people, and then learn to generate new pictures of faces which look like real people. And of course, this is then the intention here is to do it with other types of data. So we are working with healthcare data, more specifically time series data, where we have both kind of continuous variables and discrete variables, which adds a lot of complexity, and then doing the same kind of things. So the whole thing here is that you can take this potentially sensitive data, you can basically lock it up in a room with no internet connection, you train your generative models, and then you generate the synthetic data, and that is the only thing that kind of leaves this room. And then the synthetic data should retain the kind of important properties, for example, I mean, what a face looked like, but it should not be connected to any particular individual, so that there is the privacy and the integrity of the original data is maintained. And as I said, this is something we've been working on. So basically the general idea here is that we take the sensitive data, we do machine learning to learn and generative models, then we sample this in a systematic way so that we get non-sensitive data that preserves these relevant properties. So actually the focus here, I mean, if you look at from a research side, the focus has mainly been here, but actually I think this sampling part is as interesting. And in some sense, you can even argue that in some sense this is a form of inverse machine learning, because what you want to do is to generate a data set such that when you train on this particular data set, you get a trained model with whatever properties you want. So when we evaluate our methods, we are evaluating them on downstream learning tasks. So for example, that we can compare them, if we take the original data and do, say, learn just a classifier or whatever, or we take this generated synthetic data and again, we learn a classifier based on that, we want those to have similar properties. And of course, the less accuracy you lose, the better it is. And we have also taken advantage of this too. When you do this sampling, you can also compensate if you have non-representative data, so you can make it more fair and representative. So actually doing that as well so that the synthetic data that you get are both comparable in quality and it's more fair than the original data. So I think there's a lot of things one can do with this. And then the fifth trend is about collaborative autonomous systems. So actually, that's been one of the main things we've been discussing with Saab, for example, that this collaborative autonomy. How do you build autonomous systems that can work together, solving complex tasks in unstructured environments? And actually, this is something we have been working with for a long time. So actually, when I started as a PhD student for many years ago, and this is what we did. So we actually built completely autonomous helicopters. So this is about a 100-kilo helicopter that we made completely autonomous, and that was about 20 years, almost 20 years ago. We also built our own quadrotor systems about 15 years ago, but of course today we're more using the kind of commercial off-the-shelf platforms, but they didn't exist back then, so we actually had to do everything, including we did the propellers and the casing and everything, so that's quite nice. And they also not only collaborate with each other, but also with humans, which I think is very important. And yeah, I already said this, but done a lot of things. And then also related to this collaboration, I think in general, the kind of multi-agent systems where you have multiple independent agents doing things together is a very interesting area. And one particular problem we have been working with the last couple of years is called combinatorial assignment. And there the challenge is that we have, for example, a set of agents, set of people, we have a set of things we want to do. And now the question is, how do we form teams of these agents and assign these teams to tasks so that everything is done optimally? And this had traditionally been two separate NP-hard problems. The coalition structure generation problem and assignment problem. What we are solving them as one unified problems and then gaining performance, well, quality, I should say. Performance, of course, is more challenging. So this is an extremely computationally hard problem. We have proved that you cannot even approximate it. So you cannot find an approximate solution that has a bound on the quality difference. But we have state-of-the-art exact methods, we have state-of-the-art heuristic methods, and now we're starting to explore how to use machine learning to learn heuristics that are better than the best manually made heuristics. And then, of course, we can scale it up a bit. And this is an extremely general problem. So it generalizes, for example, assigning workers to job, which is one of the particular cases, but also the winner determination problem in combinatorial auctions, and multiple vehicle routing and multi-sense and multi-target tracking. So it's an extremely general formulation that can be used in many different applications. And when it comes to this using machine learning to learn heuristics, actually one idea there is that can we take this extremely general kind of solver and then specialize it for different particular cases? And through this automatic specialization, gaining the performance and getting closer to what if you were to do a manually specialized solution for that particular problem instance. So I think there is, again, a lot of interest. Actually, I would say, I don't think I put it here, but this combination of combinatorial optimization and machine learning is actually a very, very interesting area. And there we have been having a lot of, actually we had a workshop in Linköping, what week is it, last week? So we, for example, have several researchers from Canada where they have a lot of groups working on this. So I think that's an interesting area as well. And we have some references. Yeah. And as I said, one particular case is this multi-drone route planning. And actually here we have an application together with Ericsson and Saab in Sweden that we hope to get funding for to actually do this when you take changing circumstances into consideration. So of course, I mean, it's not about solving this problem once and then you're done, but rather when you drones enter the airspace or when they leave, or when, for example, the communication circumstances changes, then you need to update all these routes, taking that into consideration. So there's a lot of interesting algorithmic problems and so on to address there. Trend number 6, and now we're getting close to my time. and I think this is again one of these general things, and that's how to evaluate AI systems. And the example I've often used is this. So this is KG, where he lost against Google DeepMind's AlphaGo a number of years back. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is to look at how the human expert commentators were commentating these games, because there were several times during these games where basically the human expert commentator says something like, haha, the computer made a mistake. A human would never play like that. And of course, we know that the computer won, which means that objectively it was a good move by the computer, but from the human expert perspective, it looked like a bad move. And now the very interesting question comes, namely that now you are a human expert and you are getting advice that you think is completely wrong. How, or I mean, maybe it doesn't even have to be completely wrong, but on what grounds should you either accept or reject the recommendation? I think that's a really key problem. And actually, I mean, Go is not that critical unless you're one of these famous players, but now replace this with a medical diagnostic system instead. And now you have a medical diagnosis being made by one of this recommendation system that the human expert doctor just thinks is completely wrong. But on what grounds should the doctor reject this proposal? I mean, it could be right, it could be wrong, we don't really know, but probably this system has much, much more data to base the decision on than what we have. So there are definitely cases, while I mean, arguments for following the recommendation. So I think that's really a major challenge. And then we can see that, I mean, if, as I said, with medical diagnosis, that the amount of information is just growing exponentially, which basically means that it is impossible for a doctor to take everything into consideration. And according to the law, they are supposed to take all available information into account when they make their medical diagnostics. But how do they actually do it? I mean, so of course, if we assume that the human cognition is more or less, well, we can give the Flynn effect a bit, so then you have a constant increase, but if the amount of data grows exponentially, the gap between what they could use and what they are capable of using is increasing. So I think this is a major challenge. And actually, this applies to knowledge in general. And I mean, the argument I make here is actually around education, because this also means, if you take this from an education point of view, I mean, our educational systems are constant length, but the amount of knowledge that we should fit into our education programs grows exponentially, which means two things. First of all, we will need to learn significantly more after we finish our educations than we do during education. I mean, what we learn during our education is extremely tiny thing of all the things that you will need to learn. So that's the first revelation. The second one is that our education programs are covering less and less and less and less and less of the things that they could cover, which means in some sense it becomes challenging. So actually, I think we will need to rethink how we do education. I think we need to move away from everyone learning more or less the same things to rather take a population point of view. That a population needs to cover all the material, but individuals do not, well, they cannot cover everything. So you probably need much more variety and less kind of uniformity. That's my argument. So I think there's very interesting challenges there. And actually, this leads me into education, because actually I work quite a lot in education as well. I think this is super important. So I lead a research program in Sweden called the Wallenberg AI and Transformative Technologies Education Development Program, where we are working on a national level to try to significantly increase both the capacity for education in AI and other transformative technologies, but also to scale out from the kind of traditional technical education, because I think AI today contains so much more. And we see that, I mean, we just use this example of medical doctors as one example. We see that in basically every profession, people need to know a little bit about this or some things. And how do we scale out this kind of education in AI to other education programs? So we have a whole program around that started this year. We are also trying to teach the general population about AI using this Finnish course, Elements of AI. So it's a free open online course, but you can also get university credits from Linköping University for taking this course. And and this is another, so I actually gave a TED talk many years ago on this particular thing, because I think actually, if we're talking about teaching, for example, programming in school, many people are using this concept of computational thinking, and I've been promoting that also in Sweden. And I really think this is the key. I mean, if you take, say, the computer science department, something like that, what do people do at the computer science department? Well, they do this kind of computational thinking. They're using computation to solve different types of problems. And I think this is a general approach to solving problems. So in some sense, computational thinking is all about how can humans become better at solving problems by taking examples from how computers solve problems in kind of a computational systematic manner. And AI is the other way around, namely how can we get computers to be better at solving problems by learning from how people solve problems. So I really think these two concepts are very closely related. And there's a book chapter about that. So to conclude, my final trend is about, I really think it's not a question of either AI or humans, but really AI and humans together, and that we see that they complement, and I strongly believe that they complement each other. And it's not about trying to replace people, but rather how can we complement and augment human, for example, decision making. And I really think it's all about the combination of AI and humans, so that we can do these things together. And of course, I had to end with not only that it's AI and humans, but also Sweden and Brazil that should do this together. So I very much look forward to working, connecting research, education, and other activities between Sweden and Brazil. I presented some of the trends that I see and some of the research challenges that I would be super excited to work more about, to work together with people here around. And I'm open for suggestions, comments, questions, anything you like. Thank you very much.
Question? We have time.
No time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Professor Patrick. Now is the time of the presentation of Jonathan Olofsson from SADAB. AI and autonomous systems. Please, John.
Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Jonathan Olofsson. I work at Saab Dynamics, actually, in Linköping in Sweden, as a specialist in autonomous functions. I also had the Saab internal technology cluster initiative at Saab to bring people who work in AI and autonomy together globally. I am going to give a very quick overview of the field of autonomous weapon systems. This is a broad field and I can talk for many hours, but I won't be able to make it much justice in a little under 30 minutes, but I'm going to do my best. Saab, to begin with, is Sweden's largest defense company, and we are committed to its fundamental value of keeping people and society safe. And as such, we are at the same time invested in the concept of autonomy, as well as the controls and human oversight necessary for this technology. As I will get into, this field is complicated by the difficulty of agreeing on definitions of terms. They range from killer robots and slaughter bots to the more formal lethal autonomous weapon systems, or autonomous weapon systems. It's an even broader term. And this is obviously a topic that has seen a lot of attention in the past year, not least concerning the Russian occupation and the rise of popularity of not least unmanned aerial systems. And this popularity is a sign of some greater trends in defense technology. For example, we see that networks and multi-domain capabilities open up for better situation awareness. We have more sensors than ever and more capable communication networks. all this data will require more maturation of data processing and data management in the field. And with more information also comes greater complexity, and the required response time required is increasingly outside human levels. That is also true for the scaling, for example, into swarms, that is only enabled by greater autonomy in each system. And this is also heavily, of course, driven by the miniaturization of electronics and improved manufacturing processes, which leads to significant cost decrease as well as performance increase and new capabilities. Perhaps the most efficient way of describing what an autonomous weapon system is by describing the structure of a military attack. This is often described as a kill chain with the stages of find, fix, track, target, engage, and assess. And an autonomous weapon system generally means that the weapon is left with little to no human supervision in primarily the engage stage. And to some extent also in the targeting phase, as pointing a weapon at someone is not unlikely to be viewed as an escalation of some sort, of course, and therefore not an entirely uncontroversial element to assign mandate in. Not sure this was supposed to, yeah, it was supposed to be a movie.
It's not working?
It is working there, or?
No? It's not this? Ah.
Yeah, and I don't click anything in now, and it's just anyway. Things happening. What is often called drones have gotten a central role in the debate about autonomous weapon systems. And in 2017, the short film Slaughterbots was released, which plays sort of a hyper-realistic scenario of small flying robots with face recognition seeking out and killing people based on age, gender, ethnicity, etc. And it's sort of hyper-realistic in the sense that most, if not all, puzzle pieces of this are available already, technologically wise. And behind this film that isn't showing were very famous AI profiles such as Stuart Russell and Max Tegmark through the campaign Stop Killer Robots. And it's important to note that these are not anti-technology people, but raises an important discussion on how we are okay with the technology being used. In particular, this discussion pertains to miniature swarming drones, as these potentially could be mass-produced and become widely accessible. Autonomous weapon systems is of course not limited to this small swarming drone scenario, but it is a much wider topic. And it is often, for instance, also popularly associated with Terminator robots or similar. But I'm confident in saying that these will not be available in any near future.
It reacts slowly.
Yeah, probably something with the film there. So many applications of autonomous systems in general are still science fiction, and there are probably a few years left before many of the applications become truly viable. However, with all the modern culture around AI and the accessibility of UAVs for home use, as I mentioned, it is not difficult to find fear-mongering scenarios, even though the fears tend to diminish slightly when you see the cleaning robot shut itself into the bathroom for the 11th time. But what is an autonomous system to begin with? A system can be said to be autonomous if it, based on sensory input and internal knowledge, interacts with its environment to achieve an objective with little to no human oversight. Consequently, perhaps the simplest example of an autonomous system is a radiator thermostat. Its objective is set by a human, and then it independently senses its environment and controls the radiator to control the temperature of the room. It's important that autonomous does not mean unconstrained. A mission, in fact, is always constrained in some way, be it the performance of the system or rules that were set by the operator, or even just the heat death of the universe. And note also that the term is not purely technical. A manned submarine, for instance, would be without surface contact. That is also autonomous in the exact same sense that a system would be autonomous. And that even has authority to fire torpedoes if need be, in fact. There is also sometimes a confusion between automation and autonomy. For me, automation is the competency to actuate tasks without human interaction, whereas autonomy is the mandate assigned to choose to do so. To distinguish a new generation, leaving sort of the thermostat behind, the term intelligent autonomous systems is sometimes used for modern systems which utilize and enable AI as a first-class citizen in its operations. Intelligence, however, is also a word which is not very well defined. It is a much larger concept than learning systems, even if machine learning sort of has been the new black in the past decade. And many who speak about the dangers of AI really speak about what is termed artificial general intelligence, which is a point where AI generalizes to a similar level as humans. I somewhat dislike the term, however, because it sort of there is a built-in assumption that human intelligence is entirely general, which it clearly isn't. And it also raises that we don't really have a good measure of human intelligence, and even less so in machines. But a model that is sometimes useful is the following. Machines are intelligent to the extent that their actions can be expected to achieve their objective. So how can AI and autonomy support the operations of a complex team of systems? At Saab, we use the term tactical autonomy for the autonomous execution of missions, especially from a team perspective. In the 50s, US Air Force Colonel John Boyd formulated a work around the OODA loop, observe, orient, decide, and act, as a way to explain how agility can overcome raw power in an airfight scenario. And this is really just an extension of feedback control. The more we can reduce the loop time, the more we can get inside the opponent's decision cycle and gain an advantage. In this decision cycle, AI and autonomy can improve and support at more or less all levels. In the observe phase, we can, for instance, use computer vision and information fusion to improve the system's perception. And in the orient phase,
Yes, you need to
It's a
pass.
center.
never mind. In the orient phase, we have learning, knowledge representation, as we have mentioned, and reasoning to build up situational awareness. And this then builds up to the base for planning, and they are planning the decisions to be made within this OODA loop. And also, of course, its execution in the act phase. But these technologies, however, are just enabled for the true value of autonomous systems, their capabilities and the services that they can provide for humans. Not for themselves, as Fredrik says, it's for humans. And central to this is, of course, the ethical and philosophical discussion to ensure that Saab's main goal is kept central, keeping people and society safe. On to autonomous weapon systems, I'd like to emphasize that almost all unmanned systems that you hear about today, at least in European news these days, are in fact remotely human operated, or at least without any autonomy in the critical phases, i.e. Autonomous systems without a mandate of force. So the system which has probably been most in the news is the Turkish Bayraktar, the TB2, which is used in defense of Ukraine against the Russian invasion. And in addition to being used in ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, the systems can also carry up to 4 laser-guided missiles. The engagement decision, however, is controlled remotely by the operators on the ground. And some even argue against calling some of these vessels truly unmanned. The American MQ-9 Reaper, for instance, requires between 7 and 10 people to operate, and another about 20 to manage its sensors during operations. And ironically, actually, in 2015, the American Army had a crisis when it had a staff shortage to operate its unmanned drones. What is particular about the civilian development of drones is the accessibility for non-governmental actors to procure or produce weaponized vehicles which put effective distance between attacker and target. Both ISIS, Hezbollah, and other terror groups have access to home-built or modified commercial systems for both reconnaissance and attack today. And even the crazy Finns became a YouTube phenomenon in 2016 when they mounted a full-size chainsaw on a drone. There are also similar systems with both flamethrowers and similar things. But once again, these are mostly remotely piloted systems. But it honestly wouldn't take too many hours to integrate a commercial drone with face recognition, for instance. And when the movie Slaughterbots was released in 2017, critics argued that it was unrealistically far into the future. Actually, only a couple of weeks after its launch, the Turkish drone Kargu, up in the corner, or at least rather than the previous version, was released with face recognition, with to be released swarm modes, explosives, and this one has actually been in use since 2017 in Syria and Libya, probably Nagorno-Karabakh, and in 2020 it was used to be the first one to autonomously target and kill humans in action. This is categorized as a so-called rotor wing loitering munition, is the term, technical term, which means it can stay in the air and autonomously engage target as it appears. Loitering munitions have actually been around since the 90s, but are becoming more and more intelligent. The American Switchblade, for instance, also of Ukrainian fame, can both stream video, it can select targets, but also, interestingly, abort missions if it detects civilian or unknown actors in its operational area. Once again, the defining factor of autonomous systems is not technical, but the mandate given to the system to make own decisions, including potentially that of engagement without direct human verification. And there's nothing groundbreaking, technical, or magical about these systems, but just a matter of trust and, again, the mandate. Systems with autonomous modes, for example, automated defense of tanks and ships, have been on the market for over 30 years to deal, for instance, with incoming projectiles, which need to react much faster than any human can. And I want to quote Stuart Russell again from the Stop Killer Robots campaign. If your taxes are paying someone to die in your defense, it's hardly a moral position to refuse to help to protect them. And coming into sort of a policy and activism point of view, apart from this campaign that I have already mentioned, there is also an activist movement for agreeing to global regulations of the applications of autonomous weapon systems. And they have engagement from the Red Cross, and even the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has spoken approval of this. And it is again important to recognize that these campaigns are against very specific applications, not against military technical development in general. On the contrary, they themselves are emphasizing the moral value of sort of removing people from the battlefield, but rather campaigning against the use of autonomous weapon system as a weapon of mass destruction. But getting people to agree on things internationally is sometimes difficult. But what everyone agrees to, at least, the international place for this discussion is at the International UN Convention of Prohibitions or Restrictions on the Use of Certain Conventional Weapons which may be deemed to be excessively injurious or to have indiscriminate effects, or the CCW for short. Notably, most countries and major powers in particular are currently opposed to the current proposals, though. And one of the main obstacles for international agreements are the definitions of the terms. As I began with, these are hard and, of course, controversial definitions to agree upon. And in 2012, the US Department of Defense published Directive 3000.09, which described their process and criteria for development of systems with autonomous capabilities. It contains the seminal definition of an autonomous weapon system as a weapon system that, once activated, can select and engage targets without further intervention by a human operator. After that, there have been many definitions proposed, and one of the more interesting, I think, is one from China in 2018, which mentions, for instance, that the system must be capable of evolution and expanding its capabilities in a way exceeding human expectations. Of course, such a definition renders any regulation moot, and which is obviously the point in this case. I mentioned previously that what defines an autonomous system is the mandate given to the system. But the delegation of mandate is an entirely different thing than delegating responsibility. Unlike what many think, there is a broad agreement that the human chain of command, which sets a mission in motion, is responsible for the consequences. Just like a bullet is not responsible for its consequence, an autonomous system cannot be held accountable. And they also should not be anthropomorphized. I think of them as humans and assign human properties to them. And finding the responsible person can, of course, be complicated, but the existing legal framework applies, and international humanitarian law continues to apply, just as with everything else. It's not. There are existing legal frameworks for this. But this puts strong requirements on the development process and the trust in this process that an operator and its chain of command must have a reasonable basis to believe that the application of this particular technology, in this instance, will do what he or she believes it will do, and that it will comply with the law of war. This is no different from what is expected from a human subordinate. When an order is given, it is always with an underlying assumption and a context that all applicable laws should be followed during this execution of this mission. And alongside legal agreements, there is also another moral dilemma for autonomous systems as they develop. If you can use unmanned or autonomous systems to achieve a riskful objective, at what point will it become illegal not to? And what is the opinion of sending people's children to die, really, by the front line when you could have sent a robot? So with that, I'd like to thank you for the attention and a very brief introduction. Thank you.
Any question in the audience?
Hi, my name is Carla. I work at SKF, and we do monitoring for predictions for, in my case, 4 million assets inside our customers in Latin America. And the thing is, the decision making is not in our hands, and is in the hands of the owners of the assets. But we gave out the data. Connecting to your presentation, the decision of killing or not, it should be in the hands of the owner of the technology, right?
Well,
Because the point is, who is the responsible in the case of failure? Because I was watching the other presentation too. Excellent, congratulations. And I am concerned about synthetic data. I still do not buy it. But how can we foresee a scenario, and how can the accountability be in the provider of the technology?
Yeah.
You know?
So, as sort of I mentioned in the last slide here, it is very clear that the accountability must lie with the chain of command that produces the mission. However, that means that they must have a reasonable basis to believe that it will do what they say it will. But that is handled by existing frameworks already, actually, because if any item, but in this case, say the example is a gun, that the manufacturer has a responsibility to the point, for instance, for warranties and for probably certain failure modes which sort of hurts the user, but the liability is really with the user of the system, the one who commands it, not the manufacturer. And the thing is really that the legal frameworks that exist quite well covers the applications, whether it's a a product with AI or without AI. It's still, the law doesn't make a difference there, and it shouldn't. And as with all product development, it's then a matter of quality assurance in the development process. They could probably be certifications that you can sort of apply for, and probably like certification bureaus like the Norske Veritas for today, for example, that certifies companies and certifies products. And that's probably a good idea to have some sort of trust chain there to provide that trust for the user, because in the end they have to assume responsibility for the actions that the system, any system, will do.
Once again, thank you, Jonathan. So, the next presentation is Ericsson. Okay. Ericsson Research, Chile in Brazil, and the journey towards AI-enabled network automation. Maria Valéria, we'll start, okay, Maria Valéria?
Yes, sure. Let me see how this works.
Acho que não está funcionando.
Não tá? Ah, okay.
Pra gente.
You seem to be delayed.
Yeah,
That's why I
okay.
pressed several times. I have to go back.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
but for yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maria Valéria Marchesini. I work at Ericsson Research here in Brazil. And I will be talking a little bit about our research operation here in Brazil. And then my colleague, Klaus Reiser, here, he will be talking about Ericsson's vision for the 6G communications technology. Particularly, he will be focusing on the journey towards cognitive networks, okay? So, okay. Ericsson in Brazil has a long history of cooperation with universities. We started in 2000 and when I joined Ericsson, okay? So that's why, just a joke. So we started 22 years ago, and since then we have invested more than 300 million Swedish crowns, which means 150 million Brazilian reais. We have run more than 200 projects. Typically, a research project lasts for us 1 to 2 years, so this is a typical duration. We have generated more than 300 theses between PhD and master theses, more than 1,000 publications among paper in journals, conference proceedings, and so on. And we have generated 150 patent families. Now I'm talking only about cooperation with universities, not our internal patents, which means that if we consider individual patents, then it's on the order of 1,000, okay? So, and then in the map above, I'm pointing out our current partners. So we have a partnership with 5 universities in Brazil. You see the dots up there. And on the bottom, we see some pictures from our research teams. I like the one on the left-hand side, on the bottom. It's from Federal University of Pará. What's nice about that picture is that more or less half of the team that is there, they were students at that time when the picture was taken. They are now working with us, okay? So good achievement for Ericsson. We managed to keep this talent with us. So I like to show this result because at least I feel that we have contributed to improve the quality of research and education in Brazil with all this effort, okay? And then I see now that our former CEO is sitting up there, Quiroga, right?
Yeah.
So you probably know a little bit about this. So still doing research.
You're doing excellent. Very happy.
Okay. So next one. So then in 2015, we started our branch here in Brazil. So we have in-house research today. we are 12 people. Mateus Santos, he could not be here today. He is the head of our team. And then we have 5 researchers working within the research area networks and 5 researchers working within the research area AI, okay? And I am, formally, I am part of the research area networks, but I'm also responsible for coordinating all this cooperation with academia, okay? In terms of technology areas, when it comes to cooperation with universities, then we have a broader scope because we have more people working with us. So we have projects related to transport technologies, wireless technologies for 5G, 6G. We have network programmability, cognitive architectures, management of cloud infrastructures, AI, and robotics. But when it comes to our internal research work, within the research area networks, we are working with network automation and core networks. And within AI, we are mainly working with machine reasoning, specifically with cognitive technologies, reinforcement learning, causality, robotics, multi-agent system. So many of the things that Professor Fredrik spoke about it. So we have a very good match with his research line. So then it's very good for us. And then I will talk a little bit about this later. And then we also have an important part of our work is also to provide support to our local R&D operation here, R&D and innovation as well, in Brazil. So to attend some specific demands from customers, right, or to showcase some new technologies. We have in Indaiatuba an innovation lab where we have been doing some work related to AI, VR applications, and also robotics in there. Okay, next one, please. So, since this is a workshop about AI and autonomy, I picked up some examples of research projects that we have run with universities where we have used AI techniques applied to different use cases, okay? So, for example, here we have 2 projects that are related to advanced manufacturing. The one on the left, it is a project that we have run together with Federal University of Pernambuco. I see Kaminski sitting there. So he was a student in Pernambuco when we started cooperation there. Now he's a professor. So, so in this project, we have the scenario is we had a robotic arm picking up parts, the parts that were moving on this conveyor belt, and then this robotic arm would pick up these parts and build some kits, okay? And then put these parts in specific trays by the side. But our intention here was more to understand how the network characteristics would impact the performance of this robotic system. So we are more interested on these aspects when we did this project. Although there was a lot of computer vision involved and so on. But we were looking into how, for example, if it would be good to offload part of the processing from the robotic system to the cloud, for example, to speed up or to improve the performance. On the right-hand side, we have another project that we run together with the University of Campinas, where the goal was to control a transportation robot using a cognitive architecture that we have developed in a previous project. We have our own cognitive architecture that we have been working for a couple of years together with Unicamp. So in this case, this robot, the scenario is that this robot would move around a warehouse or a factory, picking up some packages from one place and bring them to a destination point. And also, one important aspect is that the robot would interact with humans. So the human-robot interaction was a very important point in this study. But then they have developed the system. There is this picture down there. So they have done everything. A lot it was done on simulations, but we have also been able to try some things in a real environment, okay? So, next one, please. Oh, okay. I think we lost one, but maybe, yeah, this one. So these are some two examples. Maybe it's too boring, I'm talking too much examples, but just two more. So this was also using AI techniques, but for different use cases. This is more related to network operation, maintenance, and also equipment inspection. So in the left, again, we have a project with the Federal University of Pernambuco, where we have this robotic arm. The idea is that this robotic arm would replace the human being in, for example, an installation or maintenance of a mobile radio station. So then he would identify some problems with the cables and plug and play specific cables. And they have done, we started with teleoperation, but then we moved to a mode where this robotic arm would move autonomously, okay? And we also have done all the design of the gripper was done at the university as well. And that they have to have more than one, of course, because depending on the cable, if it is round, if it is flat, depending on the cable, you need different kind of grippers, and they have done that. Okay? And then with Federal University of Pará on the right, we have another use case where we have a drone connected to a 5G network. So a drone carrying a router, a 5G router, and some sensors and camera. So then this drone would pick up some images. And then we are using machine intelligence and computer vision for equipment inspection. In this case, it was specifically to do inspection in train wagons. So they would identify problems like corrosion, this kind of things. So this was when we started like this, but then we used the same technology together with an operator in Chile to monitor crops. Okay, and then I don't have the details here to show you, but I remember that they claimed that the whole time for analyzing the data and taking action reduced a lot from a couple of days, 5 days, to 5 hours by using this technology that we have developed. I mean, it's there are many applications with drone connected to 5G networks. This is one of them. Okay, so now I talked a lot about past, so maybe just talking about a future project. So we are starting now this research center that we are calling Smartness. So this is, it will be the first telco center here in Brazil. So our focus is to do research in networking and future applications. So and the founders of this center are Ericsson, Unicamp, USP, and UFSCar. Okay, the hub of the center, it's gonna be at Unicamp. This is happening already. The inauguration, it's gonna be December 5th, so it's there, right? We have the proposal approved by FAPESP. FAPESP is the funding agency, for those of you that don't know, it's the funding agency of São Paulo State for research, okay? So it's a long-term investment, the 10 years investment. We have already the granting from FAPESP. So the total size of the project is this. If we count this 10 years, it's 56 million Brazilian reais, okay? And the financial setup is like that, 1 to 1 to 2. So Ericsson funds R$1, FAPESP another real, and Unicamp 2 reais. But the funding from the university is not cash. It's just an economic counterpart funding, okay? It's not cash, just for you to understand. And in the center, we have more than 50 associated researchers and 15 universities, okay? So we are very excited about this new initiative, okay? It's for us, it's a next step in terms of our operation here. So next one, please. I won't go through all this, but very quickly, we have a management structure for the center. So we have in all of these main, oops, I guess I cannot move it from here. For all these main roles, we have people from the academia and a counterpart at Ericsson, okay? So that we are working like this. And then for all the technology areas, the scientific and technology areas, we have a lead professor at the university, and also we have people from Ericsson. And then we have then on the left hand side, we have the interfaces at Ericsson, the main stakeholders. And on the right hand side, we have our advisory board, so the interface with the society, with experts from the academia and from the industry, as such centers must, operate, okay? So, and then the next one, okay, then this is my last slide. So, the scope of our center there, I tried to illustrate by using this house-like shape, okay? On the top, we have the future applications, and we have categorized in two groups. One that we are calling it augmented society, and the other one, it is industrial internet. So we are in augmented society. We have gaming, for example, we have XR, VR applications, these kind of things. And on the industrial side, we have smart manufacturing, for example, right? And then these new applications will demand new requisites. How to call this? Oh my God! Requirements. We put new requirements and new demands to the network. And then we are in this center focusing on these three pillars. One that it's calling. We are calling it customized edge computing. Customized because the edge computing should be tailored to the specific needs of each application, okay? And then on the right-hand side, we have all the aspects related to core networks. We are calling it fluid control and data plane. Fluid because since the control plane and data plane, they are programmable, so they could be placed anywhere in the network. So it's a high level of programmability in the core networks. And then in the center, in the heart, we have the cognitive technologies, okay? And there we have AI, machine learning for automation, okay? And then we have distributed AI, for example. And so these are the three main pillars. And then we also have, of course, as a base, trustworthiness and sustainability. And I put here on the right-hand side the professor chair of Professor Frederick Heinz here, because we see a very good connection. We believe that we are working together in this project, okay? And we believe that Professor Heinz can contribute a lot to boost the competence that we have in the center and in our own team regarding these, let's call it cognitive technologies, or okay? So, and then Klaus, please, could you continue? Take it from here.
My part, thank you, Valeria. My part will be much shorter. Here's the next one. I just wanted to contextualize. We are part of a larger community of researchers across the globe. Ericsson Research itself is as global as Ericsson, right? And we have started work on the 6G journey. And as you see here, it's very fortuitous that the time plane is similar to the smartness project. So we are quite aligned even on that. 6G will be evolution of 5G. So much of the learnings that we'll be gathering along these 10 years of work we use to make sure that we can deliver 6G
by that time. Of course, all of that will impact greatly not only the use of our networks, but also standardization for like 3GPP, TM Forum, ORAN, and whatnot. Right, so maybe next one. Yes, and this, what does this mean? It means that a lot of what we have right now, which are more classical requirements in terms of network, like latency, network capacity, and etc., they will have to be still fulfilled. They'll be more harder to get right requirements, higher requirements, but still new requirements that were not present still in 5G and 4G. So a lot of, there are things like service availability, versatility, and resiliency that we just can't provide now, but 6G will have to do. We'll have to be able to provide that. Deployment facility, energy efficiency will be key. Need to make it more efficient, not only because there is a natural tendency of energy to go up, the consumption, but also because energy is becoming more and more expensive, as you know. So there are new challenges to be addressed, right? And at the very core of that, we believe that automation will play an important role. And with automation, we believe that AI will also be important to, and by that I mean the new technologies, new methods for AI. Perhaps the next one. Right, so we talked about 6G. 6G is a large scope. We are heavily involved in one particular scope, which is this cognitive networks journey. That means that we need to achieve networks that are able to self-optimize and also to act autonomously. And by that, we would like to have what we call the zero-touch network automation vision, where everything that is done in the networks should be done autonomously, ideally 100% without human intervention, but we know that that's very hard, but that's the goal. And to achieve that, there are a number of stepping stones, like data-driven operations, efficiently, securely using data. Data should be available in the right shape, the right time, and it should be observable from the hardware and software that we have controlling the networks. The distribution of intelligence, workload, and not only the machine learning inference, but also the access to data, and it should be placed in different parts of the network in a safe manner. So there are techniques for dealing with that, like split learning, federated learning, and many others. Continuous learning should be able to learn continuously in real time. Intent-based automation, that's very important. We would like to be able to tell the network how we want it to behave, what the end goal, rather, not just give very specific instructions on how to achieve that. So a more deliberative, high level of abstraction definition of goals, so that the automation is actually achieving that for us without much manual intervention. Explainable and trustworthy AI, that also touches a lot on what Professor mentioned before. So it should be safe, it should be explainable so that it can be reliable as well. And we need to have all of that in combined manner. So it should be a system, a cognitive system that takes all of that into consideration and provides this autonomous network. We have work and projects and studies in all of these stepping stones in excellent search, and in particular, the Brazilian team has been contributing a lot to many of these. It would take too long of a time to go through all of them, but I just want to provide one particular example, which is in the next slide. Yes, that's one very interesting work. There's a link there if you want to learn more about it. It's about SLA, service level assurance, in particular QoS assurance. So we define very high level intent-based KPIs, let's say, There are multiple interacting closed loops in the network, looking at these, decomposing these intents in lower level actions to be taken in the network. They have to interact in a manner that they can actually solve the problem. So the particular problem here is that this WebRTC, where you have to make sure that they provide the right level of QoS for this video application, right? But this is applicable to multiple use cases that we have. Right, I think that's what I had to share with you. There are many other activities, very interesting techniques that we are employing. So if you have any questions, would like to learn more about it, please feel free. I urge you to reach out and ask us about it. Thank you very much.
So let's go to the networking break, okay? Because we are waiting the Swedish ambassador to arrive and also the state secretary that they will talk after the break. So let's make go.
the official welcome from the Swedish Jam. I'm so happy to see everybody here. It's a wonderful taste to see people again. So it's so difficult. We were, a couple of years ago, we were wondering if we would survive or not. But okay, I'm Sergio Quiroga. I'm the chairman of the Swedish Chamber of Commerce here. I owe my career actually to Ericsson. I was perfectly introduced by the Ericsson team. Where are them? I don't see them. Oh, okay, very close. So I'm here because of 28 years at Ericsson. I'm so happy with the Swedish culture and so on. I continue. 4 years ago, I joined the Swedish Chamber of Commerce with Jonas and continue with the Swedish tradition, the Swedish experience here. Back to what I started to say. This next year, we are going to be in Brazil for 70 years. So we are so happy to be alive, to have survived the pandemics, to have around 200 members here in Brazil, and we're so happy to have you here. And this Innovation Week and CISP and the Team Sweden, as we call the Team Sweden, starts with the embassy, continues with Business Sweden, with all the community of Swedish people, and CISP, and the Swedish Jam, that we work together and put in the Swedish flag in everything we can. And this is so important for us. So back to our 70 years, we are going to continue increasing the quantity of members here. We are, this year, we're closing nearly 40 events here. During pandemic, we managed to have nearly 55. So when it was very easy to do the online events, then we discovered how difficult it is to do this again and do the hybrid events that we must be doing. So it's very complex, but we're used to complexity. So complexity needs innovation, and that's why we're here. So thank you, everybody. So I would like to really thank all the authorities here. Perhaps it's one of the heaviest day in terms of authorities and from all companies. Needless, I don't need to say anything else than welcome everyone. And now Karin is going to take over, and then we are going to have a speech from the State Secretary as well. Okay?
Thank
Welcome,
you.
Karin.
Thank you so much, Sergio. And thanks to Swedcham for hosting this event, this interesting event on AI. And before I in turn hand over to State Secretary Sara Modig, I'd really also like to congratulate CISP for the work that you are doing on this event and for the important work you do to build a community of research and innovation in NI. And by this, you are connecting stakeholders in both Sweden and Brazil. And I think this is really, both Swedcham and CISP are good examples of how, you're two out of numerous examples, I should say, of how Brazil and Sweden together create growth, knowledge, innovation, technology, and we connect this to synergies of different kinds and to cooperation of different kind. And we are very proud to have been able to share a lot of this with State Secretary Sara Modig on during the last 4 days. They've been packed with events for you, but I think it's also, it has been a lot of good examples of how much Brazil and Sweden mean to one another, how much we can do together. So this, for you, this will be sort of the grand finale of the Innovation Week. For others, this is just the middle of the Innovation Week. This is the 11th edition of Innovation Week or Innovation Weeks, because for a long time it kept growing, and now we're back to about a week, and then we will evaluate and see how we do it in the future. But I think, again, this kind of really showcasing in a brief time all the things that are going on between Sweden and Brazil is something that I'm really proud of. So with these words, I would also like to introduce State Secretary Sara Modig. You've been on the job for 2 weeks. We cannot be more proud that the first country you choose to travel to was Brazil. I think it's really important because it's also a sign that even though there was a change of government in Sweden, the strong relationship remains. It's nothing to do with political colors, the one way or the other, but it's really so strong and so institutionalized that it's a ambition for any Swedish governments. You have a long and solid background, both in politics as well as in leadership and management in the retail sector. I think that really brings to the ministry a lot of your own experiences of enterprise. And we, as I said, we're really fortunate that your first trip was to Brazil. So with no further ado, please, Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Karin, for introducing me. It's really great to be here. I've had a really good 3 days here, and I'm actually leaving tonight. So I was trying to maximize the best of Brazil, having a lot of coffee and fresh food, just to really gather it and getting the feeling back home. It's as Karin mentioned, tomorrow. It's 2 weeks since I was appointed state secretary. So I'm really new into the work, but I got a really good introduction into this important cooperation that we have between Sweden and Brazil, and being able to be at those meetings we had in Salvador, but also start with the Innovation Week and the roundtable discussion about AI in Salvador the other day. So super happy to be here, taking part of everything. AI, as you're talking about today, is of course a priority for the Swedish government as well. And I will be having a lot of opportunities to dig further into it, but I got a really good introduction these days. So our strong strategic partnership between Sweden countries and the bilateral agreement that we have in the area of innovation where AI plays a super important role. And I will make sure that the new government will continue to work on this good relationship and to also to work on these great bilateral relationships that we have. So thank you, and hopefully I will see you guys again. Me and my colleague Carl are flying home tonight and just gonna absorb everything and all the expressions that I've got during this week and take it back and continue the work back home in Sweden. So thank you, and I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the day and your seminars here.
Thank you very much. No, not yet. Thank you very much. No. Now is the time of the Pixport presentation. Okay, because we decided we start with them the second session. Okay, please.
Thanks, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. And the reason why I'm here, you may ask, why you have a startup here? Because we were part of the CISB mission to Sweden. First, I want to really thank everybody, especially Alessandra, for organizing. It was indeed a great week. We were able to meet a lot of companies, great companies. And we are discussing a lot of opportunities still, so it was really valuable. We are part of Senior Leap now of ABB, who were accepted last week. So it's been very productive, and we want to continue the discussions and the relationship with the Swedish ecosystem. So Pixforce, you can go to the next one. Yeah, it's going to be very quick. Visual inspections are everywhere. When you think about any type of industry, you always have somebody inspecting a process. This case here, unfortunately, you can't see. It was supposed to be, it should be a video, but this is the Coronavac production, the vaccine in Brazil. And I was amazed that somebody is there inspecting every single vial to see if there's a problem in the production. So you can think about any type of process, industrial process. At some point, you're going to have a human being using the visual capacity to inspect the process. The problem is people make mistakes. So eventually, you can have power outages, fire, injuries. So why don't we rely on machines to do this type of inspection? It's faster, it's more accurate, and it's cheaper and safer. Next one. This is exactly what Pixforce does. We are a deep tech startup, and we apply artificial intelligence
to visual inspections in this industrial setting. Pixforce has been ranked the #1 AI startup for the past 5 years. This is actually outdated because yesterday we were awarded for the 5th time the #1 AI startup in Brazil. So we're really proud of what we have been doing. And here are some of our clients. Very soon we hope to have a Sweden company here, a Swedish company. So we have Shell, Petrobras, ArcelorMittal, large companies that have this issue of inspecting processes. Here is explains a little bit of what Pixforce does. Everything starts with the platform, but we are completely agnostic. So it doesn't matter where the image is coming from. It can come from a satellite or a drone or a cell phone, a smartphone. And the image type can be also various types of images. It can be an RGB image, that's a regular image, or it can be a LiDAR, that's a laser scanner, or a radar. And here's where the magic starts, when we develop a software that's going to analyze, all the, it's going to analyze all these images. And what we provide to our clients is alerts, reports, integration with their software, that SAP, this type of softwares that run their industries. Our team has been growing a lot in the past 6 years. Now we have 85 professionals. And our team, we call them the PixWiz, are our most precious asset we have. These are the smart people that's developing all this software and all this intelligence. We have offices in Porto Alegre, where we started, here in São Paulo at Cubo Itaú, and also in Finland. Here's our management team. Renato is the other founder. He's managing our Finland office. He founded 2 companies beforehand, Graphico and Verde Agritech in the mining sector. And he's highly skilled with money raising. Verde Agritech, for instance, he was able to list the company in the Toronto Stock Exchange. I came from environmental consulting sector. I was partner of Newfields, is a global company. I was partner of Newfields for 10 years, and I learned a lot about sales. That's my role in the company. And we also have Horacio and Marcelo, which combined have 50 years of experience with computer vision and AI. We have several masters and PhDs. We have also an independent board of directors, people that actually have skin in the game because they invested money in the company. We have, just to point out one, Rabi is from Finland. He is a partner of one of the largest law firms in the Nordics. Pixforce had 2 investment rounds so far. We are on the 3rd one, a seed round. And our goal is to have round A and Series B. And in the future, we want to list our company in the US. That's our goal. Now I'm going to show you the most exciting part, the products we have been developing. Deep Track. Can you click? Because no, it's not.
No, it's not the video.
It's not video.
Okay, that's okay. Deep Track is a way to inspect conveyor belts. Conveyor belts are massive structures to transport mining products, coal. The problem is that with time, these conveyor belts, they can overheat. So what we do, we fly with an autonomous drone, and it's always the same route. So it's just with pressing a button, they can detect these rollers with high temperature and send an alert. That can prevent a lot of fire. Pix counter, we can count basically anything. This case is gas cylinders in a truck. This was supposed to move, so it's more exciting when you see the video. But it's very challenging. And we also can count with a cell phone. In this case, it's, can you pass? In that case, it's a fixed camera. In this case, it's a smartphone. And with
very high accuracy, 99.5%. You can count, in this case, steel bars for ArcelorMittal. Next one. And this one is not working. Okay. Peaks quality, we can inspect production lines, and in this case, is oil platforms, looking for rusty structures. We also have products related to safety and environmental challenges. Yeah, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to see, but this one is it's a system that inspects the entrance of a gas turbine. This is a power plant. The problem is that people can forget tools or PPEs and stuff like that inside, and can cause an explosion. So we have cameras that are basically inspecting everything that's get in and get out. So we have a check-in, check-out system to make sure that everything that enters leaves the site. Next one. We are applying the same concept to Petrobras, and we are developing a no-code platform. The idea is that Petrobras, they have about 8,000 cameras, security cameras, and every single camera is seeing a different scenario. The idea is that the user is going to be able to mark what is allowed and what is not allowed in that specific camera. And if there's something that's not allowed, it's going to send an alert. So that's the whole idea, all related to safety. And finally, we have some products related to environmental protection. In this case, it's fugitive emissions and gas leaks. That's a huge problem, especially when you think about global warming. And the problem is that we cannot see these gases because with our eyes, they are not visible. So the idea is that you can use hyperspectral cameras mounted in satellites, and with artificial intelligence, find this and send an automatic alert. That's for factories, for gas lines, a lot of applications. We can do carbon inventory with radar. This is a partnership with a company in Finland called ISI. They have these radars mounted in satellites also. So we can calculate the amount of carbon that's fixed in forests. And the last one is with Shell. We have been developing this for 3 years to detect oil leaks in the ocean. Again, we use radar and satellites and artificial intelligence to determine where you have these oil leaks and the extent of the leaks. You can go to the next one. Our value proposition, why we're here first, to show the company and the products. So we have a lot of off-the-shelf products that can be used right away. And we have a very high R&D capacity to develop new products with companies, with universities, and with agencies, like we're going to discuss next. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. So now is the time of the author.
Sorry for the people that I'm saying bang in the microphone. Thank you. I'm not going to show it from my computer. These are my notes. So my name is Åsa Rudström in plain Swedish. So that would be Asa Rudström or something. I once presented myself as, my name is Asa Rudström, but I'm actually polite. So I'll start by saying thank you very much for making it possible for me to come here and tell you a little bit about AI for smart cities in Sweden. Whether or not you're going to learn anything about AI for smart cities in Sweden is another question. But so I added to this title a glance at, and we will go into some things there. So I work at RISE, and I will also take the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about RISE, which is the Research Institutes of Sweden, in a minute. But the reason why I'm here is that I'm part of the Swedish delegation, because we are working in the SBII program that Alessandra mentioned in the beginning. That is,
I would say that it's we are the lowest level of who are supposed to help executing all these great ideas of collaboration between the countries. So there are a number of areas like digital health, and that you can talk to my colleague Mariko Linder, who's also here, and bioeconomy, and of course the whole aeronautics business and mining and so on. And there are several of us points of contact that are here during this the innovation weeks. So, did you do that?
Yes.
Yes, I think I would prefer that.
Yes.
So,
I'll put it there.
So about RISE then. So RISE is the Research Institutes of Sweden. That's the abbreviation of it. And actually it's our web address is ri.se, which is quite nice. And we do research and development and innovation in most technical areas. We're sort of a polytechnical institute. And we are 100% owned by Swedish government. We're non-profit. I think it's actually you, Sarah, who owns us.
Yes, it's me.
And so we're non-profit. And that is also because we are doing research and we are living off other kinds of funding, very much from Vinnova, for example. And we are not, it's not possible even to make a profit there. But not only for that, because we have an assignment, we have a mission from the government that our role is, I phrase it a little differently than it is really, but in my eyes, our role is to take academic knowledge and help bringing that to use, to help doing this transition from academic knowledge to the industry and very much to the public sector, more and more with a lot of different public organizations and authorities needing, like everybody else, needing more digitalization, needing AI and so on. We're about 3,000 employees, which for Sweden, at least we think it's quite big. Everything is small compared to Brazil. And we have offices all over Sweden. We might have something a bit outside. We have an office in Brussels also. And what is also interesting here is that we next please, we have a number of test beds. And I'm not going to talk very much about autonomy and things like that, but we do have a very interesting test bed located on the west part, in the west part of Sweden. And it's really the world's full testing environment, where you can actually see how does this work? How do autonomous vehicles actually work? And you have dolls out in different streets. You have different parts of this area for different purposes, and then companies can come there and test their ideas. And we also have other test beds that are interesting. I mean, over the 130 plus, we have a data center where we not only you can store your data, but we also offer services for machine learning and so on. But also we do research on actual data centers. How do you manage a data center? How do you keep clients' data separated? What do you do with all the heat generated and so on and so forth? So that's quite interesting. Next, please.
Okay.
Yeah. No, back.
Yes.
So, well, you could actually go to the next one. That's probably better. And I'm trying to follow the pace here on my screen. So we also have a lot of research in AI. I mean, it goes from really advanced research in new machine learning algorithms and so on to a lot of applications and in all our technical areas. And we are gathering all this. We're trying to gather what's going on in AI in the company. In next slide, please. In a center, an AI center at RISE. And so if you want to know more of any of these different areas, talk to me later. So I have like on my head, not only the smart city hat, but also the AI hat. So, and the RISE hat, of course. Next, please. And you can go to the next one also.
But we are talking about smart cities here. We have a very strong group in smart cities. But what does this mean really? What is, if we have AI for smart city, what are we doing? Well, in Sweden, much of what we do is, it's not that we are coming from the AI perspective. We are very much oriented to the application of AI, and also coming from the use, so the benefit. What can we actually do better in the world? How can we use things? Very often people come and say that we need data, or we have data. What can we do with this data? And that is the wrong question. We have a challenge. What data do we need, or what data do we have to face that challenge? So that is really something that's important. Having said that, I think that often if you search for smart city things, it's very much about mobility. And we do have within this SBII, and we have a project in Curitiba, Smart City Concepts, that is a collaboration between Sweden and Brazil, where it's been going on for some time, starting with it's focused on transportation, and it started with transportation of people, but it's not autonomy, it's electricity. So it's electrical buses and things around that. And then they continued working with the transportation of goods, all the logistics around that, but also electrical transports. And they're still going on, and I don't know what the next thing will be. They're still thinking. We asked them, what do you want us to say? And they said, well, we're in the planning phase. So that will be next talk. So mobility right now also for us in this point of context for smart cities, mobility is not our core issue. It's of course important, but it's not our core issue, the thing that we're working with. And especially we were able to have meetings with our Brazilian counterparts from the MCTI. That was on Monday in Salvador. So the focus now is moving to very much around municipalities or cities. Smart cities. How can cities become smarter? And how can cities learn from one another? Because not every city can invent the wheel. They have to learn from each other. So, and you can look at this, of course, in many different ways, but one way would be to have this, to talk about the digitalization. The main problem there is that, yes, we have challenges, we want to do something about them, but we don't have the data, we're not connected and so on. So that is a very important thing to work with. It's a challenge in Sweden, it's a challenge in Brazil. There are lots of initiatives and cities and municipalities working with this in both countries. So this is something that we want to look into more. And one thing, as I say, digitalization and platforms. Next, please. This is from RISE, but one thing that if you it's like you have these different parts. It's like a sandwich. So we have the tech that you see. Much of this is in Swedish, but I think you can see it anyway. So at the bottom you have the tech, the data, the sensors and all that. That's really important. And on the top you have the needs. And with the need comes also the applications. But then you have, in this city, they're doing things like trash cans telling us, you need to come and empty me, and things like that. And every solution is different. And they're often working with some big company, cloud services, and then they are closed in. And they have problems with that, and it's expensive and so on. So, and the main problem there is also that one city invents it, the next city invents it, and it's the same wheel. They don't look exactly the same. But how can we move forward to actually be able to combine these things to move a solution from one place to another? And this is not a RISE thing that we're thinking that the solution to this is open source and standards for that to avoid the locked in problem, but also to have a situation where imagine that this middle layer, the soft infrastructure here, is based on different ways, but still the same kind of open source and open standards. And then that makes it possible for example, for a startup to go in and develop applications based on this platform. And that application that they develop can then be used in another city, and it can be used in another city and all over the world, really, of course, with some work. But instead of a consultant coming in and developing something in a closed environment, they develop in open source, which makes it much more movable between different places. So I wanted to show you some examples. I have a co-point of contact in Sweden who is from another institute, IVL, the Swedish Environmental Institute, Research Institute. And so they have, this is an example from the bottom layer. No, it's not, because I only changed it there. Next slide, please. Sorry for that. And it's not moving.
It's not.
Zut alors. So this is they're working a lot with water, drinking water and sewage and cleaning and so on. And a problem there for cities is that this is for storm water, and then you get a lot of particles and pollutions in the storm water, and you want to measure this. And if you look at the middle picture here, what happens if you have a sensor and you put it in the water is that it gets clogged, which means that you put a sensor there to monitor things, and what you've done then is to add a maintenance point, something that you have to work with. So they have developed this turbidity sensor that uses it's a laser beam that, and then they do artificial intelligence work on that to see also the water level. So you don't have to have a sensor for that, because they can see where is the point where the beam starts to dissipate in the water. And they also in the bottom picture, you can see it's placed. Then no, it's still the same in the bottom picture. Sorry, I'm pointing, but no, back please. So you can see it's mounted in these I don't know what they are called. You know, these metal things you have, the round metal manholes. Yes, the manhole. And it's looking down in the water, and it's easy to install, it's easy to maintain. They call it the turbinator, because it's a red laser beam. And I just heard today that they have been applying for a patent, and they had a Swedish patent, and now they had a few new patents that were accepted today. So that's nice. And then to my final example. Next, please. Yes, it's up, which is more. It's not really related to autonomy, but it is about how to predict and what the driver is doing, to understand the intention, to predict from previous behavior what's going to happen next. And this is, many people are doing this, and there's a lot of vision, of course, looking at movements, other movements in the car, the people in the back seat, and so on. And what is a bit special about the contribution from us is that we're using novel statistical and logical algorithms for this, new methods for interpreting traffic data. And this is for understanding driver behavior, but can of course be applied to other kinds of behavior. So that ends my talk. Next slide. And thank you very much for having me. And please come and talk to me at the reception later.
No, it's strange. It's worse for the other.
So it's time to go to our next presentation. Let me check. Now we have a presentation online.
Okay, thank you. It's time to go to the next one. We have a presentation online. AI and autonomous system in the mine industry. Okay, Gustavo Pessin and Thomas Vargas from Vale Institute of Technology. They will share some slides with us and with the others. Okay, please.
So thank you, Alessandra. Are you listening well? Do you listen us?
Diz pra ele que ele tá no modo.
Não é aqui.
Agora sim.
Eu vou ficar falando coisas aleatórias. Que aí, se o som, quando o som chegar, vocês me avisam. Eu acho que eu te escutei também, Tomás.
Eu te escuto, assim, talvez seja só a gente, não sei.
Ah, joia. Uhum. Eu vou avisar pelo WhatsApp. A gente não consegue ver o pessoal, né? Se eu entendi, eles estão enxergando a gente. Eu recebi uma mensagem da Alessandra dizendo que posso começar. So, Alessandra, are you listening us? Só para sincronizar com o Tomás, eu recebi a mensagem pelo WhatsApp, então a gente vai começar. So, Alessandra, how can we share the slides?
Tem um botão de apresentar, assim, ao lado da câmera.
So I think someone is helping us. So good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be presenting to you. Unfortunately, we were not able to be together with you today, but we hope the information will be great to you. So can you pass the slide, please? So, so the next one. My name is Gustavo Pessin, and I am the research leader of the Control Robotics and Mineral Processing research team at the Vale Institute of Technology. I will briefly present about the ITV and some challenges we have. Then Thomas will continue the presentation with some research we are doing with control and intelligent techniques on industrial equipments. Currently, we have 9 researchers, including me, and we have many academic partners and some industrial partners that help us to deploy the research we develop on fields. Next, please. So we also are a non-profit organization. We were created and we are maintained by Vale. We focus, or our job is to keep or to improve research and help with education, with training colleagues from Vale. We have research on short, mid, and long term, and we also have some academic programs in which we would like to start to have international collaboration with them. So can we pass the slide, please? I think you can go to the next one and next one. So one challenge we have nowadays is about autonomous operation. And as Daniel said, they were working with computer vision, and we have lots of research on that also. Some challenges we have open nowadays is related to GNSS failures. Sometimes we cannot trust on GPS signals. So we have been working on how can I locate equipment on mine when we don't have GPS anymore. So next slide, please. We also develop mobile robots and integrate software to use the robots in the industrial environment, both for environmental challenge or industrial things. Navigation and how the robot moves on different types of ground are challenges. So we have robots with legs, with different types of locomotion to use in different environments. We also need to help the use of the robots as making the robot like with self-preservation. So the robot should not collide with anyone, the robot should not overturn, and so on. Next, please. And a new challenge we have more recently is related to the use of interactions of proteins and minerals. The idea is to leverage or the idea that the pharmacy development or the medicine are using the simulation about proteins to develop new pharmacies. So we are starting to work with the separation of minerals to improve the separation. For Vale, it's a challenge to have the process in which we need to separate the iron from the silica. So simulations with interactions of proteins is a new challenge we have nowadays. So you can go to the next slide. So I was very quickly. So thank you. You have my email, and I would be glad if you can came to ITV someday here, visit us at ITV. So thank you, Thomas. I pass the word to you.
Okay. Thank you, Pessin. I've sent a presentation. If the person who is passing the slides can go to it. Okay. Well, thank you. So, hello everyone. I work in ITV as a researcher, focused mainly on projects that involve the development of control systems and artificial intelligence for mining processes. But I've brought 2 projects to show you today, but as the time is short, I will just give you a glance of it. The interesting idea is to show that both projects at some degrees of level, they both intend to use AI techniques to solve some open questions that we still have to address, okay? If any of you feels interested to know more details or discuss ideas, you can contact me, okay, through the email. Next, please. So, guys, the first project regards the need to increase the energy efficiency of our processes, okay? And this project in particular regards a SAG mill, which is a comminution equipment. And comminution processes are very common. In fact, they are necessary in the mining industry, but they are extremely energy inefficient. They can account for up to around 50% of a plant's energy consumption, all right? And in the upper picture, you see the SAG mill of Sossego plant, which is a copper plant of Vale. And you can see how big the equipment is by comparing it with this two people. I can't show you, but there are two people up there. They're doing some work. And by that, when we go to numerical values of energy consumption, it's extremely high, okay? And in the bottom picture, you see that the SAG milling circuit accounts for the largest share of energy consumption of the plant, which is this yellow part, about 37% of the total energy consumption of the plant, okay? So when you go to the project, the idea was to develop a control system structure that we would use instrumentations that was already installed in the circuit to manipulate and control some key variables in order to get a more stable operation, a more reliable one, and then achieve our goal of increase the energy efficiency. Initially, this was all carried out in a digital environment, which is a common stage of these projects that we do in ITV. So we can rapidly and safely validate our control proposals, right? And only then we go to the plant to actually implement the control system. When we went to Sossego, we stayed there for 3 months. And during this period, we validated the control structure to the real operating conditions. And after that, we could state that, in fact, our proposed technique did a good job. By using it, the automatic controller reduced the mill's specific energy by 7.8%. It means that for every ton of ore processed by the mill, it consumed 7.8% less energy than before, okay? And the same proposal also increased the productivity of the plant by 1.9%. And we know that when we are dealing with industrial applications, this is something that is always important to care about, okay? But even though this is only a part of the project, although we had these good results, there are some open questions that we intend to address using AI techniques. The first one is, how can we define automatically the set points of the key variables considered by the control structure that we proposed? Currently, this is done manually by the operation team, but the idea is to train a machine learning technique to use as inputs some variables of the circuit and predict these set point values automatically and in a more precise way, okay? A second line of action that we are following is how to avoid this condition that is shown in the right picture, known as inverted pile. When it happens, it has a considerably effect to the operation, the circuit that's shown above, and it's extremely affected. And we are thinking of ways of manipulating some equipment, some key variables of the circuit using fuzzy controller AI techniques to avoid this, which is extremely bad for the process, okay? The next one, please. And the second project involves the data-driven control, which is quite important and interesting to me because it's part of my PhD thesis. And I am investigating how can we use data-driven controller for mineral processes the idea is to take this enormous amount of data that we collect and measure every day during our operations and use it as inputs and training tools to machine learning techniques that will eventually incorporate to our control systems. And we can do that in many ways. We could use machine learning techniques to tune the parameters. So instead of having a fixed set of parameters, I would have varying parameters that would change as the machine learning technique feels it's important to do. I could use machine learning technique to model the process. In mining industry, we have this interesting and at the same time challenging factor is that our main asset, which is the ore we process, is at the same time the main source of disturbance to our processes. So the ore characteristics are always changing, hardness, size, moisture. So frequently, the models that I should rely on do not reveal what really is happening in the process due to these changes. Okay, so if we used data to rely on, it's quite interesting. Okay, so far I've picked these two processes, flotation and thickening, to work on. These two processes, they in the literature we haven't find mathematical models that precisely model them due to their complexity, and some that do, they only deal with a portion of it. So we understand that these are two targets, are really suited targets for our approach. Okay, and to this project, we are following parallel paths, parallel activities, intending to, in the future, they will converge. And one of them is the development of digital twins. As I said in the previous project, this is something that we do. We build this digital environment so we can safely and rapidly test, validate our control structures. We intend to do the same with the data-driven controllers. Okay, and at the same time, we are studying machine learning techniques, trying to understand with one another is more suited for this kind of data, trade-offs that might exist, and we are collecting, gathering data from different plants of Vale that our colleagues send to us, and using it as inputs and training tools for the machine learning techniques. Okay, all this with the intention to soon develop a data-driven control that we will eventually implement in a real process, either flotation, thickening, or any other in Vale, to understand and validate if this is adequate for real industry. Okay, and as I said, this is paths that we are following in parallel to converge in the future to the data-driven controllers. Okay, that's it for me. It was just very quick due to the short time. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Alessandra. Thank you all.
With a global star. And it's good that your partner, Vinova, is here, Regina. I don't know if in the middle of presentation, and then Regina wanna to say something. Okay?
Happy thank you very much for having me. My name is Cristóvão Albuquerque. Thank you. Mix me with Cristóvão Buarque, famous Cristóvão in Brazilian politics. I work for FAPESP. My presentation will be divided in two parts. In the first part, I will present FAPESP to you. I think this will be perhaps as valuable as the call for proposals that I'm describing, which has been launched with Vinova, the Swedish Innovation Agency. And I think you'll just see why. Go to the next slide. So FAPESP, or the São Paulo Research Foundation, is a research funding agency. So we do not perform any research, we fund research. We offer money for researchers to perform research, and those researchers can be either in academic institutions or in companies. I think that was a bit of a formatting problem there, so you might not be able to read the text quickly. But what it says is, so FAPESP is the Brazilian, any research system, any country research system, it has to have a research funding component. In Brazil, this funding component is a federated system. So we have federal level funding agencies, and we also have state level funding agencies. FAPESP is actually at the very root of this federated funding system. So 60 years ago, FAPESP was the first state-level funding agency founded in Brazil, with the mission of developing science and technology in the state of São Paulo. Oh, sorry. Try to project my. I have a bit of. Okay. With the mission of projecting. Of developing technology and science in the state of São Paulo. And it has proven very effective, so much so that when FAPESP started, São Paulo, I think, was the second producer of research in the country, and it quickly became the first, and now São Paulo accounts for half of the research output, academic research output in Brazil, even though the population of São Paulo is just about a fifth of the population of Brazil. And the GDP is about a third. So the thing is, the advantage of having a federated system is that when the country's fortunes oscillate, it provides a certain stability to the funding. So that ensures that there is always some funding for research in the country. And in fact, in the current environment, the state funding agencies have picked up a considerable amount of the cost of funding research in the country. This is, of course, not ideal. The idea is that they add to each other, not substitute each other, but it has been key to our research enterprise. FAPESP is not an agency. I usually tell that to Americans and other countries that have this system. We do not receive yearly money that we have to spend or return. Instead, we receive a fixed amount of the state tax revenue. 1% of the state São Paulo state tax revenue goes to FAPESP to fulfill its mission. And we do not have to follow missions set by each particular government. Instead, we follow the mission that was set by the Constitution of São Paulo and the law that follows, which means that we have a lot of autonomy, and we basically must make sure that this mission is fulfilled. So why am I telling you all this? Because, first of all, there is no such thing as FAPESP researchers. The researchers of FAPESP are any researcher who's based in the state of São Paulo. They may research anything and anywhere as long as they're based here. This is our concept of what is science and technology of the state of São Paulo. And of course, we can match funds with other agencies to do collaboration. Now, collaboration is one critical aspect of how we see research being performed for a number of reasons. First of all, because we believe that when researchers collaborate, they can do more. Also, because there's a lot of capacity building that's associated with collaboration. Now, by collaboration, we mean both collaboration with researchers from other places in the world and collaboration with other institutions that offer to match funds with us. So FAPESP also matches funds with companies to pursue research projects. One key thing about any research funder is, of course, what research we will fund. So how do we select research that's going to be funded? We select that research through peer review. It's a common method used by research funding agencies everywhere, which means that any project that's submitted to FAPESP will be sent out to specialists in that area to evaluate the quality of the project and the ability of the researchers to perform the project. And if those are judged adequate, FAPESP will fund them. Usually we can fund, in terms of projects, most of the projects that are considered of good quality in the current funding environment. Importantly, contrary to some institutions in Brazil that do not operate, are not funded in the way that we have never failed to fund a project. So whenever a project is contracted, it will be funded to the end. You will see it to the end. So the next slide, hopefully, is a little better. So in this case, what I'll present is a call for proposals that is being launched with Vinova and CDTI, the Spanish innovation agency, and possibly with BMVF, the German Ministry for Science and Innovation. They have not yet committed to the call. To support research in AI. I think that the next slide goes back to FAPESP. Yes. Oh no, it goes just straight to the call. So let's just give a little pause and talk a little more about FAPESP. Because this will be relevant to the call. So in research directed towards innovation, by that what we mean is any research that will result in a product or service or solution. This research must be initiated by a demand. So all FAPESP is demand driven. It's initiated by a demand by some corporate or small or medium enterprise. But the way that our philosophy regarding funding is that we can fully fund small and medium companies projects, and those are any company with up to 250 employees. If the company is larger than that, then FAPESP and the company will co-fund a project in an area that is of interest to the company. When we do that with larger companies, we're not intended to support the R&D department of the company, so it's not super high TRL projects. We tend to develop technology that will then be developed. The development process will be taken over by the company and can be supported by other parts of the funding ecosystem. Our role is to make sure that there's money at the beginning of this funding chain. So we have then basically three instruments that we use to fund research. One we call PIPI. I forget what we call it in English, but it's equivalent to the SBIR from NSF. This is funds for small and medium enterprises to develop a project. We have a second one we call PT, which is co-funding with a company of research that must be performed in an institution in the state of São Paulo, usually academic institution. And the third one is what we call the engineering or applied research centers. Those are 10-year projects that are co-funded and which are intended to pursue large questions of interest to the companies. And those are very mission focused. So the call that I'm presenting today uses a mechanism for funding called Eureka. Eureka is an organization, an European level organization that allows different funding agencies to co-fund projects. We are part of an agreement with the organization together with Vinova. I guess Vinova has already had funds devoted to them, and CDTI. And the focus of the call is to fund projects either from small and medium enterprises, so PP grants on our side, or funding of larger companies in institutions here, in AI applied to either smart cities, health, or industry 4.0. Industry 4.0 is of interest to the CDTI mainly. AI, smart cities, and health are the focuses of Vinova. The next slide, please. I'm sorry. Can you go back a second? We will make this presentation available to you, so you can just one slide. There you go. So you can read the details, and of course, these details are published in the call for proposals of exactly what we mean by AI in smart cities, of AI in health and industry 4.0. And I promise you that it will be better for my next one. So who is eligible to apply for this funding? Any consortium, so they're necessarily international consortia that must involve a member of either a company, small company, or an institution in the state of São Paulo, a research institution in the state of São Paulo. A business must be involved in every project. These are not academic grants for academia. And a partner from either Vinnova or CDTI or both, meaning from either Sweden or Spain or both, and eventually maybe Germany as well. The collaboration must have a market focus, and the funding level is up to $1,300,000 reais per project from FAPESP, plus up to €250 from Vinnova, if the project, of course, involves a Swedish partner, and up to no budget limit, actually, from CDTI, if the project involves a partner from Spain. By a partner, again, I mean either a company or an institution. An institution in the city of São Paulo must be involved. This is a call that was designed to involve the city of São Paulo. And the maximum duration of the project is 36 months. So a project can be shorter than 36 months, but the maximum duration is that one. This is an important thing. If the project is shorter, the maximum funding available will decrease proportionally. So in proportion to the duration, we will not say you cannot do a 1 month project. As for this is not allowed. The next one, the information on how to apply is both in the Eureka website and the best website. I believe that the Nova also must have a reference to it. And these are the contacts. Again, we'll make the presentation available to you. This is the last slide. Thank you very much for your patience, and I am here, so you can ask any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. I'm sorry.
Very common.
Really? Okay, good. So now is the time of the last presentation. It's an output of a company. It's not the intelligent system. Mr. Mark Kudikas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Magnus and Alessandra, for the invitation. Also have to thank Business Sweden because they called us in Sweden to. I was here actually 4 weeks ago with a German delegation, and this is the follow-up. So it's a perfect match. Sometimes you're really just lucky to be somewhere, and hopefully we can continue our venture of to raise energy efficiency in buildings and in complex industry with the brain IQ sitting in Karlshamn in Sweden, tested in Lund, and we also implemented to Stadtwerke, which is municipalities in Germany. I don't know if you know Stadtwerke, the principle. It's quite an interesting principle because in Germany, the law says that everybody has the right to have heat, cooling, plumage, fresh water, and garbage. So this is it was introduced 1931 in Germany in the first crisis to protect the poor people from not getting kicked out of the system. So that's one side. We have customers, and the second side, and that's the reason why I'm here in Brazil, is that we have a very big car for truck manufacturer in Germany to raise the efficiency in their biggest factory in Germany. They actually call this factory the Green Factory. And that's how I motivate my colleagues and my Swedish partners of investing 3 days coming to Brazil to sell this concept. Because we think that if we know Sweden and if we know Germany, we also know that Brazil is a very big market on industry, and everybody talks about efficiency today. So if we can help you, as you saw Vale, he said he could reduce energy consumption with what was it, 7%? That's quite good. So maybe they do not need us, but if we can raise the efficiency which we do in municipalities or in industry with 7 to let's say 15% a year, and I don't know how much money solve how much gross profit you have, but if this gross profit is maybe 15% or in some areas 5%, the more distribution you have, if we can reduce maybe 20% of the cost, which are energies, with 20%, you have actually effect on the margin with 2 to 3% tax free. So that's why I'm here to convince you. I know it's not really direct, it's not so fantastic the solution, but this is a very long-term a solution which will work every day and generate cash flow. So NODA was actually supported from 2005, was a spin-off from Blekinge Tekniska Högskola. And I saw that the first side that Blekinge was one of the first högskolor, or how do you say that? Applied Science University in Sweden, which is actually what we were doing here. And we had Fraunhofer, somebody was looking for cooperation in Germany. We have actually contacts to Fraunhofer, which makes applied science. I mean, you would not have Porsche or BMW if you would not have had state money and Fraunhofer in Germany. Next slide. So the cooperation started with us already 2005 in Sweden. In Germany, I got the assignment from Swedish Pension Fund. I say it purposely because it's very good if your own pension funds help startups, because even if the startups go bankrupt, the money is wasted in your country and not wasted on properties in Texas or in Spain or something. It remains. And luckily, since 2005, we exist. We exist since 2016 and in Germany. Germany is, as you know, the biggest market in Europe. And 2019, my colleague Ralph and myself, we are the two managing directors of Business Capital Energy, which is NODA in Germany since 2019. We made a classical management buyout. So we were discussing smart city, which is very close to this picture. What we do, our knowledge comes from thermodynamic, which is water. We have to realize that an electric grid is not exactly the same as a water or as a district heating or cooling grid. And this makes it very interesting, because if you get all the big data, which we were talking about, if we could get this data from the buildings and from the grid in a city, there's a big chance to optimize this. And how can you optimize this? Usually if you have a grid electricity, it's either it works or it doesn't. I mean, I'm not going into politics here, but if you understand that, then you certainly will not continue the politics we're doing in Germany right now, because you really need a base, you really need some security, because if you don't have the grid in balance, you lose a lot of money. We will see that in Germany the next 6 to 12 months, but I'm not trying to make it too dramatic. To us, it's perfect, because now everybody talks about energy efficiency and hopefully for smart city, because the resources are not there anymore. So people will understand they have to do something. So what we do is the complexity of the system. Usually, we are excellent at optimizing a building. We have Siemens, we have ABB, we have all these companies, and we have Vale. I think that I cannot say that we are better to optimize the systems than we are. However, the complexity with the buildings makes it difficult. First of all, you have so many data. You have hot water getting into the house or cold water, and then you have used it to heat or to cool, and then you have something going out again. It's called it's a demand side. And if you have the data and if you can organize the data, you have the first step, because it's very, we get data every 5 or 6 minutes, which means if you have 200,000 buildings, or in Sao Paulo, how many buildings? I imagine 2 million. No, something like that. It's a lot of data, so you really have to structure the data to make decisions. So what we do in this complex picture is we look on the how do you say that in Portuguese?
Saúde.
Thank you. Okay, we have a theme for the cocktails later on. So the complexity is the production. How do you produce heat or energy? You use coal or fossil fuels. You have wind, you have sun. It's quite complex. So that's one side you can look at. We have excellent partners from Sweden, for instance, doing this, how to optimize this, the production side. The other side is the grid or the pipes. We actually work with RISE on pipes called pipe opsy, because pipes broke down and then you have a big problem. So you have production, you have the distribution, and at the end you have the on-site. Okay, and this is quite important because until today, because of decisions made 50, 60 years ago when we had the first oil crisis, the politicians in Sweden understood that we have to have a collective solution, and they focused very much on atomic energy. So the whole system in Sweden and in Germany is based on having a primary energy resources based on atomic or nuclear power, distribute this over efficient grid, which today is then 50, 60 years old. I mean, pipes hold maybe 40, 50 years or so on. So we have a very optimized heating system in Sweden or in Germany. However, the production side is now going down and the pipes are getting old. And until today, nobody actually cared about how much people used at the end of this distribution. And this is quite important. You only pumped in a lot of heat into the system, and as long as nobody called, you said to the mayor, you will win the next elections. Nobody cared. So we have 3 things happening right now, and that's why I come to Brazil and I really want to explain the concept to you. One is that people start to understand that we want to have influence of the heat and the cooling we need. Yeah. Until today, they could not have it. It was only, clean bashing or washing. I mean, we have a lot of these apps. People run around and really think that they change the world by pushing a button on the smartphone. It's ridiculous. But it's changing. So people start to understand, not because of being nice guys, just because they have to change behavior because they do not have the money to pay for heat and cooling anymore. I'm happy, but it's not a good thing. Secondly, we have extremely old infrastructures. A German Prince Albert built the pipes in London, 1850. In London, they still use the same pipes. These pipes are 150 years of age. I mean, if you've been to London, you know what I'm talking about, okay? So there is enormous need, as you go into with Smart City, to invest in under the ground, not only what you see, but under the ground. And on the production side, as we know, Putin, gas prices, fossil fuels, and so on. So the whole system is collaborating. Not collaborating, it's falling down. Sorry? Collapsing. Next slide, please. 5. So this is what I'm into. You see, it's we call this building. Actually, in Germany, we started on the grid because building, a lot of companies are very good at building. So being half Swede or Estonian or German or whatever you call me, going into Germany and saying, hey, Siemens, I can optimize your building. It's tough. So we realized that our competitive edge is to combine, to see the whole structure of the system. And what's very interesting is, and I find it extremely charming, if I may say so, is if this house needs heating at 7 p.m., for instance, then we can already start to heat the other buildings or cool them before they know that they need it. Today, usually people they go to have a shower and then you push in a lot of oil or gas into the system to heat the water, which is ridiculous because you already have pipes, you already have storage capacities within the other buildings. If you've been to Eastern Europe, you know what I'm talking about. Usually in Eastern Europe, you have the same system, but they pump in the same in all the buildings at the same time, which means that in the middle you have the party members, and at the beginning you have the ones loose, and on the end it's too cold. So if you can optimize the system, which digitalization actually makes possible, you can balance the system so that people get the same standards, and you reduce the peaks. And these peaks are extremely important to understand because what makes the system very expensive today is when everybody needs heating and cooling at the same time, you have to push gas or oil into the system. And in Sweden, we have Karlshamn, we have Växjö, cities with 20 to 40,000 inhabitants, who thanks to this actually do not have to use any gas or oil to heat. Yes, because we already know in January it's colder than June or July. So we start to use the storage in the buildings and in the surroundings and use cheap excess energy to heat. And that's why, for instance, in Germany, we look very much on hydrogen as a capacity to save. If you have excess heat or power, you can use this and save it with hydrogen. Extra to existing buildings. And the last point to this, if you have a fantastic system, how do we manipulate the system? We manipulate the system, and this is maybe a little bit, now we come into machine learning. We get all the data, and if we have a duplex system, which is possible today with CityTown, for instance, with Siemens, you can send a signal back, and we can manipulate the system in the building with the outside temperature. Okay, this is very important because you do not have to change the hardware or the substations in the buildings. We can adapt our IQ to all exist or most of the existing hardware systems or building management systems you have. This is very important because we can manipulate the system. Usually we say it's warmer outside than the system thinks. Okay, so we use the same amount of energy, but we balance it in a more comfortable way for the whole system. Saves a lot of money, and nobody sees it at the end. And the municipality must not sell the same amount of heat or cooling as before. So we have slide 10. I have to say this because I was born in Lund, as some very famous professors. He was also born in Lund. I realized today it's a small country. I have somebody speaking Estonian from Finland, and I meet somebody who was born in the same city as myself. So it seems to be something between Brazil and Sweden. So this is a reference. We'll actually take Stadtwerke, municipalities from Germany, to visit this system at the 29th of November in Lund. Because in Germany, they don't take any risks. I must show them that it works, then they can buy our system. They do not want to be any first movers. So Kraftringen is one of the first movers in Sweden, and we will use this as a reference to get into the German market. And of course, if it works in Sweden and in Germany, I'm 95% sure it will work in Brazil as well. Although not heating, but cooling. But it's the same technology. Okay, last slide. 12, I guess. So just to explain, Norda Intelligent is our partner in Sweden. We worked together to 2019 when we were an MBA and called it Capital Energy in Germany. This is where I live in Nürnberg. And we are 5 people in Germany and 1 in Switzerland today. So if it's not a startup, we already have a proven system in Sweden and in Germany. We have references to STEAG, which is one of the biggest startups in Germany. And we are also getting into the German-speaking, actually in Switzerland. Switzerland is very interesting. Two reasons. They have a lot of heating and cooling, very much. And because each canton makes their own decision, it's much easier to get the money. You don't have to do all these formulas with 50-50 or granting or funding or whatever. If they have funding, they say they go to the people, and the people have to make a decision to say we do it, and that's what's really happening in Switzerland right now. So there's a lot of movement and funding available for us right now. Okay, thank you. Any questions now before?
No. So now it's time to close the workshop. I think that was great. Thank you very much for all of the speakers, great presentations. Okay, and also for the participants and also the participants online. We still have some participants online.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. And now is the time to have more fun together, to mingle and to interact each other. Okay. And once again, thank you very much for coming. Okay. And let's drink something together. Okay. Thank you very much.